all-wheel drive practical station wagon Subaru Forester is specially designed for our conditions. And the prices for used cars beckon. For 500 to 600,000 rubles you can buy a completely fresh Forester with a 210 horsepower turbo engine. But we have already talked about the troubles with servicing oppositionists, and a deeper investigation revealed other problems. A boxer engine is more difficult to maintain than an inline or V-shaped one. Everyone who has even changed candles in Subaru Boxers will confirm this to you. Moreover, the more modern the engine, the worse things are. On the last Subarovsky Boxers, in each of the two heads of the block there are two camshafts and very deep horizontal candle wells. Therefore, Subaru Waters especially need to not skimp on original NGK iridium candles at $100 per set. They last longer and require less replacement. In addition, the Troishi motor will quickly finish off the front oxygen sensor, and this happens more often on cars from America, sharpened for ecology. By the way, low-quality gasoline also threatens the fuel pump, and it is better to change the air filter twice as often as the scheduled 20,000 kilometers. This will help save the airflow sensor. The operation to replace the timing belt is also intricate, especially on four-shaft engines with a variable valve timing system, AVCS, active valve control system, intake. The belt, along with the roller and tensioner, should be updated after 105,000 kilometers, and along the way it makes sense to change the crankshaft and camshaft oil seals. After 120 to 140,000 kilometers it will most likely leak. The capital of the opponent is not cheap, $3,000, and the prices bite not only for spare parts, but also for work. To bore the cylinders and grind the narrow necks of the Subarovsky crankshaft on any equipment will not work. Is it easy to bring Forester motors to such a state? 2-liter aspirated engines are more tenacious. The branded, drumming sound of piston skirts, especially noticeable on a cold engine, appears only with age. A warm engine sounds suspicious only when its condition approaches critical. Without waiting for death, closer to a run of 200 to 250,000 kilometers, it is better to disassemble the engine. Replacing the rings, and possibly the crankshaft liners, will extend its life by about 100,000 kilometers. And then go through a couple of major overhauls with cylinder bores and one grinding of the crankshaft journals. But if the motor has already knocked, the shaft will be written off. Things are worse with turbo engines. They often need to be resuscitated even before 200,000 kilometers, and especially active drivers manage to kill them twice as fast. Eliminating the consequences of a liner rotation or a broken connecting rod will cost at least $2,500. A special song is the most powerful right-hand drive versions from the category of those who are over 250 horsepower. Often they got to Russia already in a semi-conscious state, and 150,000 kilometers for them is just a record of longevity. So remember, buying a used Forester with deep tuning, such as not uncommon in Japan, is akin to playing Russian roulette. The golden mean could be aspirated 2.5-liter, installed on overseas Foresters. But they didn't. Their four-shaft versions are notorious for almost inevitable overheating. The design is based on a 2.2-liter engine with an increased cylinder diameter and two thin sleeves. Double-hull versions boil less often, but even with the slightest overheating, the aluminum cylinder block is deformed. Leaks from radiators most often lead to thermal shock. Cracks in their plastic tanks sometimes appear after a couple of winters. It makes no sense to buy a new original radiator for $400. For the same money you can replace plastic tanks with aluminum ones from the old one. Moreover, even dealers do not oppose such tuning, silently recognizing a design flaw. An eye is also needed for the oil level in the engine. Owners of cars with atmospherics with a consumption of more than 2 liters of oil per 10,000 kilometers should not be surprised. The turbocharger does not refuse its portion either. With it, the appetite can be twice as much. Thin oil scraper rings of Boxers are prone to occurrence at the slightest overheating, and from detonation, the partitions between the grooves for the rings and the pistons collapse, and oil consumption rises catastrophically. What doesn't burn out will leak out, through valve-covered gaskets, shaft seals, plastic technological plugs of the cylinder block, oil supply pipes to the turbine, candle wells. If you're still aiming for a supercharged Forester with a manual transmission, set aside money for a clutch replacement in advance. It rarely lives up to 100,000 kilometers, while on conventional versions it can withstand 1.5 times longer. Together with the clutch kit, the engine flywheel often also needs to be replaced. Off-road exploits speed up the process, because, unlike cars with atmospheric engines, turbo Foresters with mechanics do not have a downshift. Yes, and the gearboxes themselves, paired with turbo engines, experience increased loads and sometimes may not live up to the third clutch replacement. Overheating of the lubricant with frequent slippage reduces the life of the viscous coupling in the center differential of cars with mechanics. After 150,000 kilometers, the center may be permanently blocked. The Forester will become reluctant to change the trajectory and shake in corners, and the treatment will cost $700 to $1,000. If the problem is not solved in time, the appearance of extraneous sounds under the rear seat is a harbinger of an imminent intervention in the rear gearbox. You will have to pay more than $100 for a bulkhead, and a second-hand one from a Japanese dismantling will cost $150 to $200. And if you are not lucky, at the same time you will have to reanimate the gears and bearings of the transfer case located in the tail of the gearbox. Automatic machines are in good condition even after 200,000 kilometers, but on turbo machines they can be very worn out already by 100 to 150,000 kilometers. Control solenoids after 120,000 kilometers with the same probability can fail in any of the versions. If, on a car with an automatic, with a sharp start or active cornering, the rear wheels pick up with a jerk, this indicates wear on the rear axle drive clutch or incorrect operation of its solenoid. Prepare up to $2,000 for repairs and continue not to abuse fast acceleration on slippery roads. A hung solenoid and a four-wheel drive locked by it will cause an increased load on the front final drive. It will buzz. It's good that you can rely on the rest of the Forester. The chassis is almost a model of reliability. Even consumables like bushings and stabilizer struts walk *440 to 60,000 kilometers. The only exception is Kaiba rear shocks on vehicles with automatic ride height. Often they wear out after 70 to 80,000 kilometers, and sometimes it is enough to catch one good hole. But there is an antidote. Conventional rear shock absorbers, even with the need to replace the springs, cost almost half as much. Like the front ones, requiring replacement after 100 to 120,000 kilometers. Otherwise, significant expenses, $800, will only require updating the silent locosis of the front and rear suspension arms, but not earlier than after 150,000 kilometers. There are also a few questions about the brakes. The rear discs nourish even 120,000 kilometers, and for drum brakes on atmospheric versions, with this run, you just need to change the pads. The body, despite the absence of a layer of zinc, does not lend itself to rust for a long time. When buying, it is enough to make sure that there are no signs of accidents. But do not rush to conclude that the airbag malfunction is on. In 9 cases out of 10, the wiring under the front seats is to blame. But the whistle of the wind due to the loose fit of the side windows to the doorways on fresh specimens should alert you. It can talk about experienced body repairs. In a word, the Forester does not ask for spare parts once again, but because of its originality, it is not cheap to repair and sometimes more expensive than most other cars to maintain. For example, the cost of 100,000th maintenance with the simultaneous revision of the brakes and suspension easily exceeds $2,000. Doesn't scare? Then, when buying, it is better to find a fresh car with a mileage of 50 to 60,000 kilometers. At least the next 50,000 kilometers will not be too expensive. If you can afford only copies that have rolled twice as much, do not skimp on diagnostics, otherwise unforeseen expenses can easily exceed the amount of $5,000. And before you buy a Turbo Forest, it's better to think twice. It's not without reason that it gets cheaper faster than atmospheric. For 3-4-year powerful versions, you will have to pay 680 to 750,000 rubles, and for 6-7 years you can barely get more than a quarter of their initial cost. Forester Turbo at least gives driving pleasure. But the atmospheric Forester, although more reliable, also drives very mediocrely.